They say the Grayson family was cursed. But what if it wasn't a curse? What if it was justice? Close your eyes and imagine this. A stormy night, an abandoned mansion in the middle of nowhere, and in the attic, a cradle, rocking, slowly, on its own. Most people would run. But when I stepped inside that house in 2023, I didn't, because what I found wasn't just paranormal. It was historical and horrifying. You need to watch till the end, because the truth about the Graysons, it's buried beneath layers of lies, grief, and blood. Let's go back, not to the beginning, but to the end. October 4th, 1987. A frantic 911 call from the Grayson estate. The voice of a child, trembling, whispering into the receiver. They're all dead. Mommy won't wake up. When police arrived, they found 5 bodies. The parents, the 2 sons, and the youngest daughter. All gone. The only survivor? 7-year-old Clara Grayson. But Clara didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't speak another word for 3 years. What could drive a child into silence? What could she have seen that night? That's not even the most disturbing part. The coroner's report said there were no signs of struggle, no forced entry, no poisons, no wounds, just death, all at once, like the family gave up breathing. But we can't make sense of 1987 until we confront 1891. That was the year Margaret Grayson, the first matriarch, moved into the land with her husband Charles. It was a quiet area, heavy woods, endless fields, and not much else. But Margaret, she didn't want peace. She wanted control. Locals said she came from a long line of spiritual women, but others whispered darker names. Witch, medium, manipulator. She held seances in the basement, built a chapel on their land where no god was worshipped, and most chilling of all, she started keeping a journal. The entries are terrifying. The boys screamed again, but the spirits are hungry. It must be done. He says he sees his brother in the mirror, but I buried him last winter. I am not afraid of fire. Not anymore. Fast forward to 1952. Edwin Grayson, her great-grandson, was a well-known doctor, respected, charismatic. But behind closed doors, he was unraveling. There were rumors he experimented on the patients in his care, treated mental illness with cruelty instead of compassion, electroshock therapy, solitary confinement. But no one dared question him, because he donated half his fortune to the town. That silence cost people their lives. One of Edwin's patients, a young boy named Leo, vanished from the facility in 1955. All records erased. All photos destroyed. Except one. It showed Leo standing next to Edwin in the Grayson garden, smiling, until you looked closer and saw his hand clenched into a fist, bloody, missing fingernails. Clara, born decades later, was Edwin's granddaughter. She didn't know about the disappearances. She didn't know about the journal. She didn't know her father, Daniel Grayson, kept something hidden behind the basement walls. Until one night in 1986, she found it. It wasn't treasure. It wasn't a body. It was a mirror, but not just any mirror. This one reflected things that weren't there. A woman in black, a face without eyes, a child, hanging upside down like a bat, whispering Clara's name. That was the first night she heard them. The voices. By 2023, the house was sealed off, declared condemned. Locals said it was haunted, cursed. Some even believed Clara still lived there in hiding. I didn't believe in ghosts until I stepped inside. There was dust everywhere. No furniture, no light, but on the second floor, a hallway of family portraits. Each face had been slashed, eyes scratched out, except for Margaret's. Her portrait remained untouched, smiling. I reached the attic, and that's where I found the cradle, still rocking, still whispering. Let me tell you what the police never found. In 1987, the family was buried, but Clara wasn't placed in a foster home. She was sent to a private institution, one run by a man named Father Holloway, a priest, or so he claimed. He said she spoke again after 2 years, but only in Latin, and only when she was asleep. She screamed at night, called out to someone named Ash. When he asked who Ash was, Clara simply said, "The one in the walls." Here's where things get even darker. In 2021, a construction team accidentally unearthed a sealed tunnel beneath the Grayson land. Inside, dozens of skeletons. Children, each holding something in their hands. Dolls, stones, pieces of cloth. Ritualistic. There was no investigation, because the local sheriff was a Grayson descendant. Do you see the pattern yet? Clara reappeared in 2023. She reached out to a paranormal investigator and gave him the journal, the original journal from 1891. Her message? Don't let them bury the truth. The mirror is real, but it's not a mirror. It's a door. Let's circle back. The 1987 autopsy showed something strange. Each family member had scorch marks on their hands, as if they had grabbed something burning, but there was no fire in the house. And Clara? Her palms were ice cold, even hours later. She had been touching the mirror. We've heard myths before, of cursed bloodlines, haunted objects, but this was calculated. Every Grayson generation ended in madness, isolation, or death, and someone or something made sure of it. The journal ends with this final line: when the child with no voice returns to the place of silence, the mirror will open again, and we will be free. You're probably wondering, where's Clara now? No one knows. After handing over the journal, she disappeared. No records, no sightings. But one thing is certain: the house? It's not empty anymore. People report lights flickering at night, a child's laughter echoing through the trees, a shadow that walks past windows that shouldn't be there. I stood in that attic for 11 minutes, and for 11 minutes, I heard something breathing. Not a ghost, not a person, something else. It whispered. She never left. I ran, but I left my phone recording. When I play it back, I heard Clara's voice, singing the same lullaby her mother used to hum. And at the very end, a soft knock, then another, then a voice. We're waiting for part 2. If you've made it this far, I need you to do one thing for Clara. Hit that subscribe button. Share this story. Let people know the truth the Graysons buried, because someone, somewhere, needs to know they weren't crazy. They were trapped, and the more we remember them, the louder their story gets. So don't stop here. Watch the next part. You're not ready for what comes next. It started with a whisper, not in the house, but in the tapes. 6 cassette recordings, each labeled with a number and a date. No names, no titles, just days that never made sense. February 30th, June 0th, and the last one just said Grayson. I played the first one, a child's voice, breathing heavily, then humming like a lullaby, but off tune, disjointed, almost reversed. Then the whisper, Margaret watches when you sleep. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. The tapes were found in a hollow wall during a demolition near the chapel. That same chapel Margaret built, except the blueprints never included that building. It's as if it appeared, like it wasn't made with hands, but with memory. Memory that didn't belong to anyone living. You think I'm exaggerating? Let me take you to the basement, the real basement. Beneath the Grayson house, there are 3 floors. The county only listed 1. The first sublevel was a wine cellar, rotten barrels, broken shelves, dust. The second, a locked iron door. No handle, only a slot at the bottom, like for feeding someone or something. But the third wasn't on any map, because it didn't follow geometry. I walked down 13 steps, counted them, heard every creak. But when I turned around and counted up, there were 29. That's not just paranormal. That's a trap. I'm not the first to go down there. In 1971, a young journalist named Naomi Barnes investigated the Grayson family history for a local paper. She interviewed the town elders. She followed land records. She went inside the house. She was never seen again. But in 2023, her notebook was found behind a mirror. Page after page of ramblings, drawings, blood smears, names, and at the center, written in ink so thick it bled through, a single sentence over and over. The house doesn't end. Clara knew this, but no one believed her. When she was 13, she drew a picture for her therapist, a family of 5, all smiling, except one. The girl in the center was drawn in red, and her eyes were hollow. When asked why, Clara just said, "She's not me anymore." And she was right, because by then, Clara had split, not mentally, not symbolically, physically. Let me explain. According to a nurse who worked at her facility, there were 2 Claras, one who sat in bed all day silent, and one who walked the halls at night, singing, touching walls, leaving fingerprints on mirrors. And here's the thing. The Clara in bed had no fingerprints, not faded, none, as if she'd never been born. People began to question the nature of the Grayson bloodline, not just haunted, not just cursed, engineered. The family had an obsession with twins. From Margaret onward, twins were born every other generation, but only one survived. Always. In 1934, 2 boys were born, Samuel and Silas Grayson. By 1935, only Silas remained. The paper said Samuel drowned, but the pond behind the house is only 2 feet deep. So what really happened? A page from Edwin's journal said this. The second child sees too much. It always does. One must return. One must remain. Clara wasn't a miracle. She was the mirror, the one who returned. And the one who remained? She never left that basement. Let me show you something even more disturbing. Inside the chapel, there are stained glass windows, but none depict saints. None show crosses. They show children, wailing, being pulled upward by shadowy arms. And at the very center, a red mirror, not metaphorical, a literal object depicted in holy glass. No records show who made the chapel, or when, but behind the altar, carved into the wall, was a word, Ash. The same name Clara whispered as a child, the one on the walls. We thought it was a ghost, a demon, but I found the records. Ash Grayson, born 1891, died never. No death certificate, no grave, no obituary. But his name appears again in Margaret's journal. The boy will carry the door inside him. He will be the silence. He will be the scream. Now listen to this. In 2023, a group of paranormal researchers spent a night in the Grayson house. Only one made it out. He said nothing for 6 weeks. Then he drew a picture, a child's bedroom, with a red door, painted shut, and on the other side, someone knocking. 3 slow knocks, over and over, until the walls bled. He didn't return home after that, but his audio recorder survived. The final minute of his tape plays something you need to hear. A girl's voice, singing the lullaby again, and then layered beneath it, something else. A man's voice, cold, hollow, not recorded by microphone, but imprinted into the silence. It says, "She opened it. Now you are all inside." People think haunting means seeing ghosts, but the Graysons don't haunt their house. They trap it. Every visitor, every photographer, every local who dares get close, they're not observing the curse. They're fueling it. That's why Clara disappeared. She wasn't hiding. She was trying to stop it. Her last known location? A cemetery in France. But no body was found. Only a note, burned at the edges. It read, "The mirror cracked, but it did not break. The girl is gone. The door is open." That was dated 3 days before the cradle started rocking again. You think this is all a story? Check the land deeds, the sheriff's lineage, the patient records from Edwin's facility. Every name loops back, not just Grayson. Ash, Clara, Margaret, as if history doesn't pass. It repeats until we watch long enough and become part of it. That's why I recorded everything. That's why you're hearing this now. Because if I vanish like the others, you'll know what to do. Don't follow the light. Don't trust reflections. And never, ever answer if someone knocks 3 times, especially from the inside of a mirror. Clara said it best. The house doesn't end. It just waits. And now, it's waiting for you. Watch till the end. Because this story doesn't want to be told. It wants to be relived. And you're already inside. There's something wrong with time around the Grayson estate. Every clock inside the house is stuck at 3:07. Digital, analog, even pocket watches. The investigators thought it was electromagnetic interference until they noticed something else. The sun never fully touches the back of the house. No matter the time of day, that part stays in shadow, just like the Graysons always stayed in shadow. The earliest photo of the family, dated 1893, shows Margaret holding an infant, but in her diary, she never mentioned a baby that year. Only this line, "The light took one, the dark left a gift." And standing behind her in that photo is a boy, unlabeled, barefoot, eyes blurred, not from damage, but motion. Even in a still photograph, he moved. That boy appears in 5 more family portraits over the next 100 years, never growing older, never named, but always watching. You've already guessed it. Ash! He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a memory. He was the echo. And he always appeared just before someone in the family died. The same boy was seen in a photo with Edwin days before his mental breakdown. And again, outside the window behind Clara, in her 3rd grade class picture. Everyone believed she was cursed. But Clara didn't fear Ash. She spoke to him. She called him the other me. Let me tell you what happened on the night of October 3rd, 1987, the night before the Grayson massacre. Clara woke up to the sound of a mirror shattering, not from her room, from the basement. She followed the sound down. Her father was already there, Daniel Grayson, drunk, furious, screaming at the walls. He wasn't alone. Standing across from him was another Clara, hair matted, dressed in a white gown soaked to the knees, but her face missing, just a blur, as if reality couldn't decide what she looked like. Daniel yelled, "Not again! You're not taking her again." And then he swung a hammer into the wall, but the wall didn't crack. The hammer bounced off, and blood spilled anyway. Clara dropped the flashlight, and in the half-darkness, she heard her mother whisper from upstairs, "Don't look at it. If you look at it, it sees you." Clara looked, and for a second, she didn't see the house. She saw a hallway lined with doors, each one with her name on it, each one opening. That night, the Grayson family went to sleep and never woke up, except Clara, because Clara didn't sleep. She never had. In her old room, under the floorboards, someone later found 27 hand-drawn pictures, each one showing Clara asleep. But she wasn't the one who drew them. Different styles, different handwriting. One of them signed at the bottom, A.G. Ash Grayson. How did he draw a sleeping girl from inside a wall? Unless he was never inside. Unless Clara was. Let me explain what they believe now. The mirror is not a portal. It's a seed. And the house? The house is what grows from it. Every time a Grayson is born, the seed blooms. Rooms appear. Stairs rearrange. Memories take root. And Ash isn't the spirit inside the house. Ash is the house. He's what's left when time collapses, and people forget which version of themselves they are. That's why Clara changed. Not because she was possessed, but because she remembered. When she turned 14, she wrote a letter to the mayor. It was dismissed as nonsense. But in it, she said, "The floor under my bed used to creak. Now it hums. I saw a door that wasn't there yesterday. I walked through it, and I saw myself, older, tired, bleeding from the mouth. She told me not to open the red one." The mayor ignored it, but a month later, the mayor's son disappeared. And guess what they found in his bedroom? A red door drawn in crayon. And above it, Clara's friend is waiting. No one reported it to the press. They said it would fuel hysteria. But hysteria doesn't leave claw marks on the ceiling. I met someone in 2024 who lived near the Grayson land in the 80s. Her name was Judith Raines. She said she heard Clara singing every night at 3:07. Not outside, not from the house, from the forest. The same melody, again and again. Judith followed it once, and in the woods, she found something buried in the snow. A music box, still playing. She opened it. Inside was a photograph of Clara's mother, eyes scratched out, and underneath the message. She tried to leave, so she forgot how. That's when Judith started forgetting too. She said it began small, forgetting phone numbers, her own birthday. Then she forgot her husband's face, her daughter's name, the color of her house, until one day she walked into the forest and didn't come back, except she did, 3 days later, wearing the same clothes. But she didn't blink, didn't speak, just sang that song, over and over. She's still in the care facility. They say she's catatonic, but sometimes, when nurses pass her room, they hear two voices, and one of them says, "She's next." You want to know the scariest part? Margaret warned us. In her journal's final pages, she wrote, "Memory is the coffin, blood is the soil. When the mirror cracks, the seed opens, and the house finds a new name." Then she burned the last page. We only know this because Edwin referenced it in his own notes. He tried to stop it. In 1957, he built a chamber, lead line walls, no reflections. He called it the still room. He stayed there for 11 days. No food, no light, no clocks. When he came out, he was blind. He clawed his own eyes out. He said he saw every version of himself, and none of them were alive. They found the chamber years later. Inside were 7 mirrors, each shattered from the inside and carved into floor. Ash lives in the cracks. I don't think the Graysons died. I think they fractured, split into every fear they ever buried, and every version of themselves they refused to face. And Clara, she wasn't the final victim. She was a final witness, which is why she had to vanish. Because if you see the whole house, you can't leave it. You become part of the architecture. Judith drew a map once. She said it was a house as she remembered it, but it wasn't a house. It was a circle, rooms feeding into themselves, doors with no ends, stairs that dropped into nothing. And in the center, not a fireplace, not a nursery, a well. And from that well, a hand, reaching up, holding a mirror, on its back, written in cracked glass. You were always here. And maybe we were. Maybe that's what the house wants. Not to scare us, but to remind us that we've all built versions of ourselves we don't recognize. We've all opened doors we can't close. And we've all looked in mirrors and wondered who's really staring back. If you're still here, you've seen too much. So do one thing. Remember Clara. Remember Judith. Remember the name scratched into the chapel floor. Don't forget, because forgetting is how it finds you. And once it does, you're not watching the story. You are the story. It's already inside. And it never ends. There's a story the locals don't tell, because they can't. Every time someone tries, they forget halfway through. They stop mid-sentence, blink, and say, "What were we talking about?" It's not amnesia. It's the house. The Grayson house doesn't just trap people. It erases them, piece by piece. Ask yourself something. How many people have gone missing near the Grayson land in the last century? 10? 50? More? You'll never know, because the names don't stay on record. The photos fade. The birth certificates vanish. And that's not folklore. It's documented. In 2015, a historian named Mara Gentry compiled 73 missing person reports, all connected to Grayson State. She printed them, filed them, submitted them to state archives. 2 weeks later, she was reported missing. Her case was never opened, but her assistant kept one backup copy. I saw it, dozens of names, and one handwritten note at the bottom. They're not lost. They're absorbed. It makes sense now, because when I walked through the house one last time, I didn't feel alone. I felt surrounded, but not by ghosts, by versions of people who once were. Let me take you back to the beginning, not 1987, Not 1891. Earlier, before Margaret, before the land was even named, an old map was uncovered beneath the town church during renovations in 2019. A map from the 1700s. No Grayson land. No fields. No house. Just one word scrawled across an empty space. Ashenfield. Not a place. A warning. Old English folklore says ashen fields are places where the veil between time and self is weakest. People who walk through them don't always come back as themselves. Sometimes they come back, split. That land was never meant to be built on. But Margaret didn't care. She believed the field would speak to her. That's why she held seances. Not to reach the dead, but to wake what sleeps beneath the soil. She got her wish, because the night after her final seance, she wrote only one thing in her journal. I heard it breathe. That was the night Charles died. Her husband, found curled in a closet, eyes wide open, body twisted as if trying to fit into a space too small for bones. He wasn't buried. Margaret kept his body in a locked room. Visitors said they heard music playing from behind it, and whispers, always whispers. In 1902, a child named Eloise Grayson went missing. Margaret claimed she'd run away. But in 1946, a letter was found under a floorboard signed AG. It said, I'm in the mirror. I see you every day. Please stop looking. No one ever opened that mirror. Not until Clara. She didn't just touch it. She didn't just see herself. She let it in. When she turned 16, she vanished for 48 hours. Returned barefoot, covered in ash. She wouldn't speak, but on her bedroom wall, written in soot, Clara is not Clara anymore. That's when the house began to rot. Not physically, but in memory. People who visited couldn't remember the layout, couldn't recall how many stairs, which rooms were upstairs, which doors led to nowhere. A researcher drew a map after visiting. When she left, she looked at it and screamed because the map wasn't a floor plan. It was a face. Clara's, or something that looked like her. That's what the house is. A memory so powerful, it builds itself into existence. Room by room, generation by generation. It doesn't live in the walls. It is the walls. Every scream, every footstep, every whisper, recorded like grooves in vinyl. And the mirror? It's the needle. Touch it, and the song plays. Over, and over, and over. I saw Clara one final time. In 2023, days before the cradle moved again, she stood at the tree line behind the house, watching, silent. When I called to her, she didn't turn. She just said, I took her place. She wanted out. She remembered too much. I asked, who? Clara didn't answer. She just stepped backward into the woods and disappeared. She left something behind, though, a key wrapped in red string. I used it. It didn't open any doors in the house, but it fit perfectly into the floorboard beneath the nursery. And under that plank, a box. Inside, 3 strands of hair, a doll missing its face, and a final page from Margaret's journal. The child is not the curse. She is the cure. But no one believes a mirror. They only break it. I should have left it there, but I didn't. I turned on my recorder, stood in the attic, and whispered one thing. Ash, are you there? The cradle stopped moving. The light in my phone died. And behind me, footsteps. Not fast, not violent, just slow, careful, curious. I ran, but the attic door didn't open. It never does when you're afraid. That's the rule. You have to be still. You have to forget who you are, or it sees everything. I closed my eyes, and for a moment, I wasn't me. I was Clara. I was Margaret. I was Judith, cry in the woods. I was the child in the mirror. I was every version of fear this house had ever swallowed. And then I wasn't. I woke up outside. No phone, no box, no key, but in my hand, a drawing, a red door, a mirror beside it, and a message in the corner. You made it out, but you're not alone. I check the mirror in my room every night now. Sometimes it's fine. Other nights, There's dust on the inside, and a handprint, smaller than mine, pressed flat, waiting. You're wondering what happened to the house, aren't you? It's gone, burned down, or so they say. But you can still find it if you walk deep enough into the trees. The land's quiet, but not empty. You'll know you're close when your watch stops at 3:07, when your name echoes louder than your voice, when you remember things that didn't happen to you. And if you see the cradle, walk away. Don't look in it, because it's never empty. Not really. Not when the mirror is open. And if you hear a knock, don't answer, because the Graysons are still waiting. Not for revenge, not for peace. They're waiting to be remembered. So remember them. Keep their story alive. Tell someone what you heard here, because stories only fade when we stop listening. And this one is still unfolding. Right now, behind you,